West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On February 2nd, I asked the Minister of Public Services and Procurement to stop using asbestos in federal public buildings. Asbestos has been called the greatest industrial killer the world has ever known, and New Democrats have been fighting hard to get this carcinogenic and toxic material out of buildings and people's lives. This known carcinogen has claimed the lives of thousands of Canadian workers, so it is shocking to learn that while the federal government is spending millions to remove it from buildings, it is installing new asbestos in other buildings. I was very encouraged when the minister replied that the government would undertake a review of this issue. It was quietly announced at the end of March that as of February 1st, 2016, the federal government has officially banned the use of asbestos-containing materials in all construction and major renovations. The NDP applauds this move, Mr. Speaker. It is a good first step in a decade-long struggle to remove asbestos from workplaces and buildings. However, Canadians are left wondering what will it take for the government to finally remove this cancer-causing substance once and for all. Last week on April 28th, the National Day of Mourning, I called on the government to join a growing list of countries, including Australia, Britain, Japan, Sweden, that have already banned the deadly killer. So did the Canadian Cancer Society, the Canadian Labour Congress, and many, many more organizations. Over 150,000 workers in Canada are currently exposed to asbestos, especially in the areas of specialty trade contractors, building construction, auto repairs and maintenance, ship and boat building, and remediation and waste management. Many Canadians, including children, are unknowingly exposed to asbestos every day. It is found in schools, hospitals, homes, and building materials. Canadians dying of cancer caused mainly by workplace exposure to asbestos has rose 60% between the year 2000 and 2012, according to Statistics Canada. Since 1996, there have been 5,000 approved death claims stemming from asbestos exposure, making it by far the top source of workplace death in Canada. Yet statistics show that asbestos imports in Canada continue to rise. The International Agency for Research of Cancer classifies all commercial forms of asbestos as carcinogenic. Its evidence shows that there is no safe form of asbestos, nor a threshold that it considers safe. When pipes and tiles containing asbestos are cut to size, fibers are often released. Materials naturally break down over time, and warning labels fade. It is impossible to monitor all workplaces to ensure younger, newer workers, in particular, are wearing protective gear. When there are rush deadlines or precarious informal jobs, proper procedures often fall by the wayside. Younger, less experienced workers are less likely to complain. The World Health Organization bluntly says all types of asbestos cause lung cancer, mesothelioma, cancer of the larynx and ovary, and asbestosis. Yet Health Canada's website continues to play down the risk of asbestos exposure. It never clearly states that all forms of asbestos cause cancer, but rather, and I quote, asbestos poses potential health risks only when fibers are present in the air people breathe. Why does the government continue to allow Health Canada to post misleading information about the safety of asbestos? The minister has said that she has heard the concerns expressed by Canadians over the continued use of asbestos, and that the health and safety of our building occupants and visitors are a priority. If that is true, Mr. Speaker, when will this government ban the use of asbestos entirely?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to take part in this debate on this important issue. Until recently, asbestos was widely used for many centuries in thousands of building construction products in Canada and around the world. This included insulation for walls, ceilings, and plumbing fixtures. However, an increasing body of scientific evidence has shown us that asbestos creates serious health risks. Health Canada advises us that breathing in asbestos fibers can cause cancer and other diseases.
One of the main responsibilities of the government is to ensure that Canadians' health and safety is protected, especially with respect to the presence of asbestos in old buildings. As a result, As soon as the presence of asbestos is detected, steps have to be taken immediately to eliminate risks. The buildings belonging to Public Services Canada are looked after in this way in keeping with all of the rules applying to asbestos. We make sure that asbestos dust is removed and other measures are taken. Asbestos is removed if there is any risk to the health and safety of people, or if there is maintenance or renovations that need to be carried out. And all materials containing asbestos are handled properly. Government services and procurement understands that asbestos needs to be identified where it is used, and the government is carefully managing the use of asbestos and keeping up with changes in regulations.
The presence of asbestos is identified in a government building, immediate action is taken to remediate the risks. In the case of buildings owned by Public Services and Procurement Canada, this action is taken in strict conformity to all legislative requirements. This includes asbestos management plans and corrective actions, such as asbestos abatement and encapsulation. Asbestos is removed or encapsulated when there's a risk to health and safety or there's a requirement for maintenance or renovation. It is true that asbestos-containing materials are still used across the construction industry in limited applications where it does not easily break apart and thus can't be inhaled. The government takes the health and safety of its buildings, occupants, and visitors very seriously and strictly conforms to the legislative requirements for health and safety. To minimize the risk of building occupants, asbestos is removed when there's a health and safety hazard and when undertaking building recapitalization. As of the 1st of April 2016, Public Services and Procurement no longer uses asbestos in Public Services and Procurement Canada new construction and major renovation projects. This follows a review on the use of asbestos in future Public Services and Procurement Canada new construction and major renovation projects. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member for her comments. Any Canadian who works in or visits a building that contains asbestos really does have the right to know that they may be exposed to harmful substances. With the recently announced Registry of Federal Buildings containing asbestos, at least workers can verify if their workplace will expose them to asbestos. I do call on the Minister to make this registry accessible to all Canadians without delay. And at the same time, I hope the Minister is also planning to create a nationwide registry listing any facility that contains asbestos, not just the buildings owned and operated by the federal government. Mr. Speaker, it is an undeniable fact that asbestos is responsible for thousands of deaths, and it is unconscionable for the government to continue importing and using it in any form. When will the government ban all asbestos?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to summarize the government's position. We take the health and safety of our buildings, occupants, and visitors very seriously. Whenever the presence of friable asbestos is identified, immediate action is taken to remediate the situation.
Public Services, Government Services and Procurement Canada follows all legislation that applies to asbestos, and rigorous asbestos plans are in place.
Services and Procurement Canada no longer uses asbestos in Public Services in Canada new construction and major renovation projects. Thank you.